Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for scheduling what is really a very timely hearing on global oil prices, because every family and business across America is feeling the burden of higher fuel prices, which is forcing average U.S. households to pay $155 more in fuel costs this summer's driving season as compared to last year's. Gasoline and diesel prices are currently around 60 cents more than they were at this time last year, and that's the highest that we have seen in 4 years. My constituents are particularly aware of the prices at the pump since Washington state drivers pay the third highest gas prices in the country. I believe even more than in some places in Alaska, which I find hard to believe. But currently, drivers are shelling out $3.41 per gallon. That means that every gas station fill-up costs Washington drivers about $8 more than it did last summer. That means everything from boaters to people who are moving products that are key to getting product to market are paying more and making things more expensive, which means that's less take-home pay and higher retail prices for the goods that they transport. Given the profound impact higher fuel prices have on family budgets and our economy, we need to take aggressive action on all fronts to make sure that we are policing these gas prices and markets. Not only do we have international cartels artificially constraining price, obviously lots of statements in the last couple of days are leading to uncertainty in the markets. What happens if the Iranians do follow through on their threat to shut down the Strait of Hormuz? About a third of the world's seaborne petroleum passes through that checkpoint, where shipping lane is just 3 kilometers at its narrowest point. So I hope to ask our expert witnesses about that as well. We also see in tight oil markets the opportunity for volatility and potential for manipulation. We must continue to find ways to protect consumers on all of these issues and continue to make sure that we are breaking monopolies at the pump. Whether that means continuing to aggressively look for alternatives to fuel markets and solutions, or making sure that we continue to focus on opportunities. I'd like to learn more about why record-level oil production here in the U.S. is not providing any relief at the pump. Just last week, we reached a new production record of 11 million barrels per day, only slightly behind Russia's 11.4 million barrels per day. So even putting aside the fact that continuing to put that level of carbon in the atmosphere is unsustainable, America's increase in fossil fuel production seems to be only padding a bloated oil economy profits rather than helping the household budgets of many consumers. In fact, I read just yesterday that this Friday, analysts expect Exxon to post a 62% increase in quarterly profits to $5.45 billion. So the reality is even as crude oil prices have doubled over the last 2 years, oil supplies have been relatively flat despite the U.S. crude oil production. That's because OPEC and other producers like Russia agreed to set market supply quotas starting in January of 2017. The more we pumped, the harder they worked to make sure that the prices stayed high. So it's very hard for us to drill our way out of this problem. The effective ways to reduce our fuel costs both nationally and individually is to beat the OPEC monopoly with some good old-fashioned competition at the pump. Americans should be able to fill up with homegrown biofuels instead of the Saudi or Russian crude, and we should continue to push for electric vehicles and lower operating costs for our consumers. Members of this committee have been instrumental in increasing fuel economy standards, but now the administration is trying to reverse that progress. Reduce consumption of oil in the United States by 2.4 million barrels per day is where we were on track for 2030, saving consumers in the United States $130 billion. But implementing these policies and reducing oil consumption, we have learned also has been creating jobs. It credited for more than 288,000 automobile manufacturing jobs and 1,200 jobs across the United States. So these alternatives are showing that we can produce pressure to as an alternative to gasoline supplies, and we need to keep moving forward. Unfortunately, as I said, the Trump administration seems to be adhering to trying to tear down these alternatives. I also today want to talk to our witnesses about what else the executive branch could be doing using its existing regulatory and investigative authority to make sure that untoward things are not happening in our supply chain. Recent steep one-day changes in price of crude oil have raised concerns about the role of speculators with automatic trading and algorithms. On July 11th, domestic and international oil futures had the steepest one-day percentage decline in more than a year and the sharpest one-day point drop in over 3 years. These dramatic changes in one day have caused market observers and analysts to raise concerns about automated trading. So this is something I'll ask our witnesses about today. So, Madam Chair, obviously all of these tools should be in our toolbox to continue to focus on giving the American driving public the best opportunity to have low fuel prices. I look forward to asking our witnesses about these questions.